So you went through a breakup, you tried no contact, and you've realized how little it helps and how damaging it can be. This is a story that I hear over and over again in my comments, in my email, people trying some of this pretty ineffective reconciliation advice, such as no contact, seeing the damage that it causes, and then not knowing what to do. So in this video, I want to talk about how to repair the damage that has been caused by following the no contact rule. So I've spoken a lot on this channel about how the no contact rule doesn't really help repair a relationship, not long-term at least. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds in it. If you want a deeper dive, I'll link to a video up above and in the description down below about why the no contact rule is so ineffective in repairing a relationship. The long and short of it is, at best, it can grant a temporary reconciliation. At worst, it can cause an even deeper toxic relationship cycle that will take even longer to undo. You know, I see a lot of people in my comments talking about how they tried the no contact rule and it made things worse, or their partner pulled away even further. Things escalated and then they got blocked. The no contact rule for breakups can cause some really heavy damage to the relationship. But that damage doesn't have to be permanent. In fact, if you approach this situation effectively, it can not only reignite the repair process, but it can also have a compounding effect on the relationship long term. So what are the steps to start repairing the damage after no contact? The first one, and unfortunately it's going to be the hardest one, but the first one is to take accountability. So like I spoke about in my previous videos, the harm and the damage that can come from arbitrarily forcing no contact, to cut off all contact with your ex-partner in order to try to get them back or in order to pull yourself away from the relationship, this can cause a lot of emotional whiplash. And this inconsistency is the thing that can break a lot of trust when going through the repair process. Once you've realized, you've had that acknowledgement, you've realized that this was done with maybe the wrong intent, or it was done with good intent, but has had a damaging impact on the relationship, it's time to admit that, to take accountability for the potential emotional impact that came from going no contact. And this is doing it without any excuses. It's really important to acknowledge how this no contact may have felt for your ex-partner. In this moment, deep empathy goes way further than defense. So this isn't a time to say, hey, I did no contact, but everyone was saying that it was the cool thing to do online and I really tried. I thought that it would bring you back, but I didn't realize that it wouldn't. That's not the way to do it. It's important to take full accountability and show a deep understanding of the impact that it had on your ex-partner. It's important to be honest. So don't sugarcoat your mistakes. Don't play the victim of bad advice or other people's ideas. Own your choices, that you made a decision that had a negative impact on your ex-partner. And then it's important to be humble. Accept the fact that trust takes time to rebuild. We talk a lot on this channel about the repair process and how this is not some short-term fix. You cannot repair a long-term relationship in a couple of weeks or even a couple of months. It takes a long time to rebuild trust through consistent actions, consistent effort, and the ability to be humble. So during this time, show curiosity about their needs instead of acting like you've got all of the answers. But then it's important to have a plan. Share in a small way about how you're learning to be a stronger, more consistent partner or just person in general. But don't use this as a time to brag or oversell the plan. This is not a time to list every step of what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you've learned. This is ultimately still part of being humble. So your plan for repair needs to be focused on the right things. Focus on the important relationship skills, the emotional regulation, the communication. Focus on the stuff that's important to repair a relationship, not the surface level stuff. This is part of taking accountability, is knowing when you're taking a shortcut and shifting away from the shortcut mindset into the hard but essential skills to build a relationship. Feel free to mention that you're learning better tools, but don't sit there and use this as a time to show off or brag about all of the progress that you've made. This actually shows a lack of confidence in your plan because it seems like you're trying to oversell it rather than letting your actions prove things over time. Then it's important to invite, but don't pressure. So once you've mentioned this to your partner, open the door for them to spend time with you, but don't demand closeness. Don't think that just by apologizing or taking accountability that you can start putting yourself into your ex-partner's life and just picking up like nothing happened. Give them the space to say no. And if they say no, show through your actions how much you respect that. then it's important to make sure that you're shifting the conversation. During the reconciliation process, so many people try to talk about the relationship. And this is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. I've actually done a deeper dive video on it, which I'll link to up above and in this description down below. When you're trying to repair a relationship, talking about the relationship constantly actually has a negative effect. If you think about the way that you start a relationship, you don't start a relationship by having conversations about the relationship. You don't shake hands and say, I think we'll be a compatible match. Here's why. Here's all the reasons why. A relationship is implied through conversations about everything but the relationship. It's about the connection. And this is the same way to repair the relationship. Repairing the relationship does not have to require conversations about the relationship. Members and I talk about the difference between the process and the outcome. Outcomes come from good processes. It's the same with becoming a star athlete, right? You win gold medals by focusing on the ability to run, to play whatever sport it is. It's the same with relationships. When you focus on the process, you focus on the actual moments that build a relationship rather than the label of the relationship. That's when, ironically, the outcome starts to happen. So focus on building the relationship, having conversations about important topics, deep topics that connect you both, the human experience, rebuilding safety, and showing through your behavior that you've changed. As you build this emotional safety, conversations are actually only a small amount of repairing a relationship. Yes, they will come at some point, but there is a lot more repair that needs to happen in the meantime. And this process is what I work on with all of my successful members. Once you start to focus on the process of growth, that's when the outcomes start to happen. Things start to change in your life, your relationship, because you're focused on the things that are effective rather than constantly looking at the outcome. And if you do want to start your journey on this, then feel free to join us on the Relationship Bootcamp. This is a micro course that I put together that shows you the core elements of relationships. Once you start to understand these core elements, it becomes a lot easier to focus on how to repair the relationship moving forward. If you do want to join us, just click on the link in the description and you can grab your spot. So putting all of these steps together, what is an example of something that can be said? So this is not some script. Do not use these words, but I want to give you an example of not just verbal things. These are also things to live, not just say, if that makes sense. As an example, I want to be honest with you, and I think that this may hurt you, but I want to be honest. I pulled away from you to try to get you to miss me, to get back with me. And that's on me. I'm learning I've been quite toxic in a lot of the ways that I've acted, and I really want to learn better tools to stop acting in this way. I don't have all the answers right now. I imagine in your shoes, I would be feeling pretty let down, probably pretty angry. I'd been manipulated in this way. Maybe you're feeling something even worse than that, but I wanted to let you know, and I wanted to just open the door to hear whatever thoughts you had. So in this way, it hits a lot of the points that we're making here. You're taking accountability. You're showing some understanding on how this may have impacted your ex's feelings. You're showing humility, but also that you are willing to learn. You have a plan to learn, but you don't have all the answers right now. And then you're inviting your ex to open up and allowing them to speak. But you're not trying to convince them. You're not trying to pressure them. You're not trying to tell them about why they should come back to you. This in itself is showing in a small way that you're actually starting to do things the right way. Now, the one key point here is that it's very likely that your partner is going to open up, is going to be angry, is going to be hurt, and is probably in this moment going to reject you. This moment is going to be really crucial in learning how to understand and how to handle this rejection is going to make or break the reconciliation process. So I've done a deeper dive video, which I'll link to on the screen. But when you are rejected, how you respond to being rejected, if you get defensive or you shut down or you give up trying to repair the relationship, that will tell them everything they need to know. But if you are focused on growing in the true way and you are still showing that consistency, you're leaning into that rejection, you're taking the time to understand why your ex feels the way that they feel, this actually rebuilds trust because it shows that you're strong in your changes, that you're keeping working on yourself, even if your ex isn't ready to reconcile right now. And this is one of the most important things to understand. Rejection has to happen in order for your ex-partner to be able to trust you again. And how you show up during this rejection is going to make or break the reconciliation. So I won't dive into it here, but I'll leave you with that deeper dive video and I'll see you over there.